Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from Ensemble Ventures, and I'm here with my third interview for the Healthcare Workforce Enablement Seminar Series. I'm fortunate to have Mike Ware, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the El Paso County Medical Society. He's been at this role for about 4 years, but this isn't Mike's first rodeo. He's been at this before. So, Mike, I really appreciate you spending some time today. Understand you're looking through some of your bios. You did a little sausage making in the political space. I know, yeah, I mean, after you had your BA out of Denison University, this is obviously in communications and political science.
Correct.
You jumped right into being a legislative aide. Who was that with?
Oh, I actually had two. So, first it was an Ohio State representative named David Evans, and then after that it was Jim Carmichael.
Excellent.
Also Ohio House of Representatives.
So you did the grunt work for the candidates, and then you jumped into a PAC later. So is the Ohio State Medical Association PAC.
That's correct.
So is this how you made the jump from politics into healthcare?
Yeah. So it actually was recruited for an 18-month assignment to run a political campaign, and we were trying to change the composition of the Ohio Supreme Court. And very successful. Went from 6-1 pro-trial lawyer to 5-2, what's called judicially conservative.
Nice.
Majority on the court.
So your 18-month period lasted 5 years. They liked you so well they kept you on for another 4.
It's another way around. But yeah, that 18-month stint has turned into a 16-year career, and I've become very excited and passionate about not just working with physicians, but also the opportunities for change in healthcare. If you want to be innovative, if you want to be entrepreneurial, this is the industry to be in right now.
Well, it does show. And again, you did another 5-year stint at AMA,
correct,
American Medical Association, and you were heading up their component society relationship. Was that a kind of a herding cats role, or were you specifically doing some troubleshooting for the AMA?
Yeah, really my role was to help develop organizations like ours. Had 18 states and all of the component medical societies like ours that I covered, and then 54 national specialty societies.
Oh, wow.
So my territory covered about a third of the United States. So it was from here in Colorado all the way out to Guam. Yeah.
Well, you made some overseas trips a couple times, right?
Yeah, seeing the world from the inside of a conference room.
Yes. It gets boring after a time. Well, again, at El Paso County, you've been there now 4 years, almost 5, and I think you kind of came in as a turnaround specialist for the society, because there was some challenges that the organization had, and I think you've done some interesting work there. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, and we have a great team. I get the honor to come out and talk about what we're doing, but we really have a great team. Excellent. And they get all the credit for what we've done. So, like many associations, professional associations, we we're facing what a number across the country are facing.
That's right.
Declining membership, declining revenue. Yep. We were finding the average age of our member rising. And so we have a business model that's built to be attractive to a baby boomer generation and then a generation before them.
Got it.
So effectively our business model was designed right after World War II. And then it was
for guys like me.
Fair enough.
Old guys at the baby boomer level, you bet.
And it was outlawed by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1963.
That helps.
Yeah. So as an industry, there are only about 10 of us across the country.
That's all medical societies
that are
county medical.
There are only about 10 of us across the country that are innovating and changing up our business model.
Because that was a surprising number if it was only 10.
Oh, no. There are quite a few of us. So
the change agents and the thought leaders, there's 10 of you.
Correct.
Gotcha.
And so what we've done, we've taken ourselves from just the traditional professional association where go to a meeting, have dinner, maybe listen to a speaker.
Right.
We're now a practice services organization. So we are transitioning and have come out of beta with phase 1 just recently of becoming a full service organization for medical practices. And the reason for that is a large number of physicians in America practice in an independent setting.
That's right.
And the bread and butter of American medicine is the 1 to 10 physician practice, but it's the most underserved part of the market.
That's right.
But it makes up a large chunk of physicians. So we think we can be the ones to provide value to that segment of the market and really be able to help them compete with a lot of the challenges that we're talking about today.
Very good. And this is one of the reasons I really wanted to bring in and have this kind of review, because you're really down at the grassroots working in the hand-to-hand combat with physicians.
Yes.
And I actually came across a very interesting article that was in the Gazette back. This would have been back in 2014, February. El Paso County is one of the worst doctor shortages in Colorado Colorado. Study shows.
Yes.
Now, again, I don't know if that's been improved since then, but you made some pretty good. You weren't shocked about this. I mean,
No,
you
not
said,
at all.
frankly, I'm not shocked at how difficult this is. He said, including perceptions that the region isn't a hub for medical care as well as transportation issues. So there were some challenges that
Yeah.
we have a perception about not being forward or being a healthcare
Correct.
central hub, even though we've got Prime Health and we've got all the
Correct.
things going on in the Front Range. So part of it is a messaging issue.
Correct.
But I do think that you've really recognized this need where these independent physician practices are under fire, under pressure. They're being
Correct.
recruited from hospital chains to come in under the umbrella, get all these services. Yet the care level is dropping to their patients, and they're kind of pushing back against that. And even though we know that ACA is kind of going through its course, and there may be some interesting changes in the healthcare industry as we move forward. Do you think that there's going to be a resurgence of the independent practice groups reinvigorating themselves and coming together with new collaborative care solutions
Yes.
locally?
I would say that is correct.
Okay.
It's a correct assessment. So, people nowadays in the healthcare industry talk about the rise of the employed physician.
That's it.
Yeah, and that is the trend of the last couple years. But if you look at the data across the last 30 years, about every decade you'll see a 2 to 3 year spike in employment.
Okay.
But those physicians that are employed in a large health system tend to move out back into an ownership model,
Got
an
it.
independent practice
Right.
where they have some level of ownership stake in the practice. So, barring those 2 to 3 year spikes, physicians primarily function in a model where they own a share of their practice.
Right.
So, the only trend that has been consistent across the last 30 years is a move from a 1 to 5 physician practice to a 6 to 10 physician practice.
Got it.
Still primarily focused on an ownership model, and that's really where we see healthcare consistently moving is in that direction, and we're going to provide value to those practices.
Absolutely. Does that give them economies of scale going from 2 to 3 to 5 versus 6 to 10? Are you getting some additional service potentials now at that level?
Correct.
And again, your focus is, and again, even from a healthcare IT
Yeah.
standpoint, which is where we're looking, what do you see the challenges that those science practices are going to have, and are they going to have to really kind of step up to the plate, even though they've had all of the meaningful use and
Yeah.
EHR stuff kind of shoved down their throats with incentives and so forth? A lot of that did not get fully developed and wasn't deployable.
Correct.
What are they using today? What's their IT strategy going forward?
Well, it really depends on whether you're talking a specialist or primary care in large system or small system.
Got it.
So throughout our region, just over 95% of specialists are already on an EHR.
Got it.
But the way the economics of healthcare work nowadays, they can afford to invest the upfront cost in that.
Right.
That doesn't translate to primary care.
Right.
So in our community, fewer than 50% of primary care physicians are on an EHR.
Got it.
That drops even lower when you take out the 2 large health systems that are skewing those numbers.
Got
It
it.
drops down
Significantly.
significantly.
Wow.
Our data is showing below 10%.
Wow.
And that's an area where we're going to provide value
Yeah.
and work on solutions that are going to be able to bring the entire group of primary care and specialists together.
Got it.
To be able to really leverage that collective.
Do you see some challenges in that area for healthcare IT and cybersecurity, for example? I mean, this is one of the
absolutely.
biggest topics in our community,
Yeah.
because obviously we're going to be pushing forward on the National Cyber Infrastructure
Correct.
Center, and we've got a lot of initiatives in the healthcare IT and cyber crossover, because there's a lot of security needs. Are you seeing smaller healthcare practitioners and their IT practices are just not keeping up with this cyber threat? And what do you think is needed to help fill
Yeah.
that gap?
Well, it's not only that they're not keeping up, it's that they don't know what they don't know. And so we're at that level.
Okay.
So
So it's a DEFCON 3 problem.
that's
Okay.
one way to put it.
Okay. All right.
Really, unless you can hire an expert in-house, it's something where there's not a lot of access to the knowledge that's necessary. Now, we happen to have a great firm here in Colorado Springs that we use.
You
and
can
they
help facilitate access to
Yes,
them.
we can help facilitate access, but that's not something that most practices in a lot of communities have access to.
That's right.
But the cybersecurity, especially as it relates to healthcare,
Absolutely.
is going to be key. So when we look at cyber threats and cyber attacks throughout just different industries, healthcare healthcare is the highest.
It is. Well,
It's well
I've
over
heard
30%.
I've heard the number that a stolen credit card is only worth a couple of bucks, but a healthcare medical record's like $10 on the black market. So
Absolutely.
So you go where the money's going,
Yeah.
and I think that the criminals are doing that
Absolutely.
right now. And so this is why we're forming this healthcare IT and
Correct.
cybersecurity center of excellence here in the Springs
Yeah.
to bring together all of the healthcare specialists and the cyber specialists. We're going to meet at the table and start looking at what are the
Yeah.
real challenges need to meet this. So, and I think, Mike, you'd be a great person for this. So it's an
for the
official
plug right
invite on
there.
there. You go. All right. Well, listen, let's focus in on the workforce
Absolutely.
stuff here. This is the same question I've asked all the other interviewers. In your opinion, what is the caliber of healthcare IT professional that you're seeing come across your door that may look for work with you or with some of the other alliance partners that you have? Are they up to snuff? Do they need certain skill sets in new areas? Wear your HR hat. Tell us what you think you need.
Well, the ones that do come across come through my office or our office through some of our other team members. They are qualified, but the number's small.
Okay.
So we don't have the volume, at least in my experience, of qualified individuals.
Okay.
Now, I do see a number of IT professionals out in the community who call themselves IT professionals. I wouldn't say they necessarily have.
Okay, so we're talking specific quality and certifications you're looking for. What would those be?
It's one of those things where in healthcare it's developing. It's as far as giving you a list of say 10 things.
So if somebody came in and said, I have HL7 FHIR experience, is that going to get to the top of the stack? Or I'm a big data specialist and I know how to talk to social workers. Like our previous interview with Jim was talking about this unique world of not only interfacing with physicians and their networks, but also having to deal with the data analytics in the back end. Do you see a unique front end, back end skill set requirement?
Yeah, I mean there's a few things that are necessary. On one end, you need somebody like a Jim Kalani who's got a deep expertise in this area and has an entrepreneurial mindset and is very good at problem solving.
Right.
On the other hand, you need deep technicians that can really get into the guts of it. And not being from an IT background, listing off a list of specific certifications that we would need is a little beyond my area of expertise.
Me too. Yeah.
But what I can tell you is having an understanding of HIPAA requirements is key. I mean, most practices, and this is a consulting service that we at the El Paso County Medical Society provide, most practices do not have a deep understanding of what truly are the HIPAA requirements. We specialize in it, and through one of our teams, we've got a team of 3 people that do this, and but being able to translate that HIPAA knowledge to cybersecurity is key.
That'd be a unique interface. So if we had, college age kids that are moving through their career paths in IT, if they could start looking at these areas. So do you want to see more interfacing with the local colleges that have these kinds of programs coming to you, talking to you? Has that happened in the past? Do you want to see more of that?
Hasn't happened in the past. There's some discussion about it, especially with the Pikes Peak Workforce Center. They also see that this is a need out in the community. What I can tell you, though, is academic programs tend to move slowly. And when they catch up, it's usually about 10 to 20 years behind the market.
And that ain't going to cut it today.
Not going to cut it. Things have to move too quickly.
That's right.
And so...
it's no longer Netscape time. It's no longer Facebook time. It's Netflix time. So we're moving at a faster pace.
Very fast. And things are moving very quickly. So it's... so those programs, whether offered through an academic center or through an organization such as ours or the Workforce Center or any other group, those are going to be key.
Got it. That's a good point. Well, one of the things that I think your passion is, obviously in the political side of this, do you see any legislative needs at the state level to help drive this model forward in terms of the protection of this physician core that's under fire, from the larger hospital chains? Do you see any cover need or some legislative need to help this body do what it needs to do moving forward?
Possibly.
Okay. Because again, you've got a pretty good political hat that you wear that you could bring this to the table.
In prior lives, yes.
Okay.
Actually, until the last 4.5 years, spent my career in that general realm. What I can tell you is there are a couple things that will really help, but aren't necessarily from a legislative standpoint. Having the political support of Governor Hickenlooper or Mayor Suthers here in Colorado Springs, pushing to bring the cybersecurity center here.
Excellent.
That's key.
Good.
What I can also tell you is out of the federal government, when we talk to professionals in the entrepreneurial folks in the health IT world, what they tell us is they've spent the last few years just trying to meet the government regulations.
Correct.
So they've been trying to meet those expectations.
They've been occupied.
Yes, and what's frustrating the entrepreneurial types like us is that's taken them away from trying to meet the needs of their customers.
Absolutely.
So in a way, all of these regulations that are coming out, and they're very well-intentioned regulations, are holding back some of the innovations.
Well, and I think one of the
place.
other things that doesn't come through your bio, and we talked about this before, and that's your experience in the emergency management area. You've got some pretty interesting projects going on there. We might save that for another interview.
Absolutely.
Because I think this whole world of healthcare IT, cyber, and emergency preparedness and management is a very interesting space. And so there are some initiatives we're trying to pursue here. But listen, Mike, I really appreciate you spending the time. Looking forward. We'll dive into this panel session. And,
sounds great.
Love to have you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate the opportunity.
All right, that's the third interview. We're going to dive into our panel session now. And again, on the microsite, we'll have the ability for a lot of research from Mike's group from the El Paso Medical Society to be able to give you a feel for what's really going on in this area. So look forward to the next time. Appreciate your time today. Thank you.